Charlie Shields was appointed to the State Board of Education in August of 2012. He has served as president of the board since July of 2015. He is president and chief executive of Truman Medical Centers. He joined Truman Medical Center in July of 2010 after serving 20 years in the Missouri General Assembly, culminating his service with 2 years as president pro tem of the Missouri Senate. He earned his bachelor's degree in marketing and his master's degree in business administration from the University of Missouri. Charlie is often quoted as saying, "Education is the #1 determinant of economic status, and economic status is the #1 determinant of health status," bringing together the importance of education in living a long and healthy life. Please help me in welcoming President Charlie Shields. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. It is indeed an honor to be with you today, and let me thank you first on behalf of 900,000 plus students in public education in our state. And also, I am fortunate to serve with 7 tremendous state board members. Some of them are with us today, and would ask that my colleagues on the state board rise and let me welcome you and thank you as well for your service. It has been what I would describe, this may be the understatement of the year, an interesting year politically, both in D.C. and at the state level. So there are a lot of challenges, and people talk about the politics of public education. I'm going to dive into that a little bit. But there's actually been some really good news related to public education in our state. I think we all saw in the budget process that there were dollars that were expended to expand the internet access and connectivity, particularly in our rural areas, which is so very much needed. And then for the first time in recent history, in the first time in this formula, we saw the school foundation formula funded fully for the first time. That's really good news. But I think there are also challenges in public education. So the legislature and the executive branch, and I shouldn't say the legislature, some members of the legislature, because we have some great supporters here, have some ideas that really challenge how we do public education, or at least the traditional way we do public education. The idea of educational scholarships and tax credits, that's one idea that we've seen floated out there. Do we bring charter schools past Kansas City and St. Louis to all of Missouri? And do we allow for private virtual school options in our state? So that's what we saw this past legislative session that had a fair amount of support, not just from the legislative branch, but also the executive branch. So I think the question, as educators, we have to ask ourselves, so why do those challenges exist? And where do these ideas come from? Well, I think there are multiple answers to why the challenges exist. I think it's obvious that some lobby extremely hard because they see the opportunity for public dollars that were formerly off limits to private interest as being a new source of revenue. And that one's easy to understand. That is simply an economic question and an economic opportunity. So I think we can understand where that comes from. Others, I think it's a deeper philosophical question that they have, that simply that tax dollars should follow the child regardless where they receive their education, whether it's public schools, private schools, parochial schools, or charters. And that follows just, as I said, a philosophical view of how education funding should happen. And then we've heard often that some come from the standpoint that children in low-performing districts should have a wide array of options available to them and not be trapped in that home district simply because they don't have the economic means to move out of that district. And yet others, and I think this is the one that concerns me, see public education as somehow not meeting all the needs of our state. And that's an area I want to focus on, particularly when it comes to workforce preparation and concerns that have been brought to us by the business community in Missouri. The Missouri business community is a constituency that has always supported public education in our state. And if they have concerns, then we need to be concerned. When I talk to business leaders, their number one challenge is bringing into their businesses employees that have the skills necessary to compete in today's economy. This is particularly true in manufacturing and technical jobs, and I believe they feel, as an education community, we are either not sending them graduates who can fill these jobs, or we are not somehow promoting technical education as a viable option for post-secondary education. In fact, they go one step further, and they make this statement, and I've heard it time and time again. The business community says, all you are interested in is sending people to complete four-year degrees. That's the perception that we're up against. Now, the State Board of Education makes policy decisions based on four really broad goals. Goal one, all Missouri students will graduate college and career ready. Goal two, all Missouri children will enter kindergarten prepared to be successful in school. Goal three, Missouri will prepare, develop, and support effective educators. And goal four, the Missouri Department of Elementary and Secondary Education will improve departmental efficiency and operational effectiveness. But what the business community is clearly focused on is goal number one, college and career readiness. So let's discuss that. What does that mean? What does college and career readiness mean? And why does that matter? Why is that a big deal in Missouri? Well, you've heard discussion in the past, and you've heard me talk about it. What does it take to make Missouri a great state to do business? And the discussion in the state capitol often evolves around issues that we're pretty familiar with. Right to work, should Missouri be a right to work state? Legislature passed that. There's another ballot issue that's going to be a huge battle in our state. The tax structure, is it right for business? Is there excessive government regulation? Is it tough to do business in the state of Missouri? And then the old standard, which is workers' compensation. Are our workers' compensation rates too high in the state? Does that make it hard to do business? And those are important issues, but I have to tell you that when I engage with business leaders in Kansas City and business leaders in the St. Joseph community, it's not those issues that I just mentioned that they talk about. It always, almost always comes down to workforce issue. Can those business leaders find qualified people to fill their jobs and to grow their businesses? And survey after survey of business leaders shows that is absolutely the case. CNBC Annual Top States for Business ranks Missouri 49th in workforce due to perception that people lack education and skills needed by employers. The number one reason companies choose an area to locate in is the availability of skilled workers. And that will become more and more important as our needs grow in the future around technology and automation. So clearly, workforce preparation, it is a big issue. It may be the big issue. How do we educate that workforce of the future? How do we meet these challenges moving forward? Well, the state board, we have strategies, and DESE has strategy. We will continue to promote STEAM and technical fields. For job growth in Missouri, the future workforce, absolutely needs graduates prepared in these areas, and we know they're high-paying areas. And we know there's 2 times as many jobs available for STEAM graduates as non-STEAM graduates, so that's important. Second, we encourage innovation in career and technical education. How do we find schools and how do we encourage schools to be ready to help students succeed whether or not they attend a 4-year college? You've seen programs like youth apprenticeships that are beginning to take hold in our career centers. We have districts that have really creative ideas. I know I saw Dale Hurl in here with they have the independent school academies. In the Northland in Kansas City, we have Northland CAPS. Those are really important ideas. Then as we look at MSIP and develop MSIP 6, what are the things we focus on as a board and department as we think is important, and what do we measure in terms of successful graduation in terms of workforce preparation. We have a lot of people from industry working on that. We have people from Cerner, Siemens, Hispanic Labor Council, and other businesses that are really giving us input to what they think is important, so we set the standards right. And last, we work tightly and closely with the Coordinating Board for Higher Education. We, in fact, have a meeting with them tomorrow, and this will be one of the issues, career and technical education, that we will talk about. And those are really good strategies at the board level and the department level, but I think it goes past that. We will not be able to drive the kind of change. We really need to talk all across the educational spectrum. And one of the challenges around this area when we talk about career and technical education, and this is not new and you know this, but it's a perception issue around career and technical education and what it means for us as educators and what it means for our students. So let me talk about some of those perceptions and what the challenges are and what those barriers are to being effective in this. First perception is that technical education is for the least academically prepared of our students. I think that perception has been around for years, and I will tell you that from what I've seen, the fallacy of that, because everybody knows the machine tool operator and the math skills required for somebody in that job far exceeds the math skills required for most four-year degrees. At last month's State Board of Education meeting, we approved the Career and Technical Education Certificate. This is a certificate for high school graduates focused on career and technical education. And I think one of the things that we were amazed as a state board was the rigor that goes around that certificate. We frankly said, you know, that's as tough as the International Baccalaureate degree. It's a rigorous program, and we applaud that. And I think you'll see the businesses start to recognize that certificate. The second perception I think we have to get past is that skill jobs tend to be lower paying, and that certainly could not be further from the truth. I think the opportunity exists to feature our young people in great paying jobs as a result of technical education. I remember in St. Joseph years ago, there was a welding instructor at Hilliard Technical School, and he was the Pied Piper of welding. He would talk to students, he would talk to parents. I listened to him. I was about ready to quit politics and become a welder because I thought it was that exciting. We need more people like that. But you talk about the pay issue, those welders were making great money, but it's just not welders. At my hospital, Truman Medical Centers, I can show you countless examples, people with 2 years of education that are in high-paying jobs. If you're an MRI or ultrasound technologist, you will make, with a 2-year certificate, more than $65,000 a year. If you're a nuclear medicine technologist, you will make $75,000 a year at Truman Medical Centers. The last perception that I think people have, and this is one that's really big with parents, is that you have to make a choice, either technical education or traditional four-year education. There remains this viewpoint that if you start down the path of career and technical education, that it is a terminal path, that as far as you go in your higher education. And that is just not the case. For years in education, we used to talk about 2 + 2 + 2. Get an associate's degree, get a baccalaureate degree, and get a master's degree. And I don't know how we got away from that conversation because I think we're more able to do it now than we've ever been able to do it, but we have to continue to reinforce that. So those are the perceptions. Well, we can overcome those perceptions, and the business community can help us overcome those perceptions. But I also think we have to talk about capacity and process. How do you make it easy for students to go down this path? And how do you make it affordable? From a capacity standpoint, you know, Missouri has 13 public four-year colleges. We have 14 public two-year community colleges. We have 10 specialized or technical colleges, and we have 57 career centers. We have a state budget that is absolutely stretched to the max, and we have local electorates that are wary of new taxes. So it's pretty hard to argue that we need to build something new because we lack capacity. We have capacity. It's even harder to envision taxpayers being willing to support it. So the opportunity requires K-12 education, career and technical education, both two-year and four-year colleges and universities to come together to create a system that is enticing, affordable, and seamless for high school students to obtain a post-secondary credential. I know that sounds really easy, and we know it's tough, but it has to be done. I think this opportunity for all of us to work together is more important now than ever. Up to this point, I have framed this as an economic and a business issue. That's what the business people are telling us. But in reality, it's about future opportunities for our children and grandchildren. How do we ensure our young people have the education they need to compete in the future economy? It's not just a higher education issue. It's not a K-12 issue. It's not a community college issue. We have to work together. But let me put this in very real terms. And those of you that attended this conference for a few years have heard me tell this story before, but I'm going to tell it again. As the commissioner said, I have the privilege of leading Truman Medical Centers in Kansas City. Now, of all the babies born in Kansas City, Missouri, half are born at one of Truman's 2 hospitals. So in the next 24 hours, 10 babies will be born at Truman. And if nothing changes and past statistics hold true, only one of those 10 children born in Kansas City will hold a bachelor's degree by the time they reach age 25. The other 9, we blame higher education, but the fact is that the other 9 will not get lost in higher education. They will get lost along the way. 2 will fail because they didn't enter kindergarten ready to learn. 2 more will get lost somewhere in the elementary school system because, and likely, they didn't have a parent who was interested in their education. 2 will get lost in middle school, but they'll get promoted to high school because we simply didn't know what to do with them. And we'll lose 2 more college-bound students in high school because they just won't see any reason to go to college. It doesn't apply to them. And the final 2 that actually start college, 1 will drop out because they couldn't afford to continue. So we end up with 1 out of 10. And you know, one of the favorite places to go in a hospital is to the mother-baby floor. So I go up there a lot. And I look out at those babies, and I see 10 babies. And the amazing thing is they all look like they have potential. And I can't pick out the 1 out of 10 that's going to end up being successful. What I do know is that they all absolutely deserve a chance. As the workforce requirements of our country require more skills, nations and states which can focus on raising the level of educational attainment of their citizens will ultimately achieve a better quality of life for those citizens. That's our charge. So can Missouri continue along its current path and hope to rise out of the lower third of economic opportunity? I don't think so. W. Edwards Deming, who is the father of the quality evolution in American business, said this when he talked about struggling businesses. Says, your system is perfectly designed to give you the results that you're getting. So we have to ask ourselves, what result do we want? And have we designed the system that will get us there? If not, what are we going to do about it? As I mentioned in the beginning, there will always be political discussions around the philosophy and the economics of public education. That discussion will never go away. But if we do this right, we will end the discussion of public education not meeting the needs of our state. If we can end that discussion, wouldn't that be refreshing? And I think the work starts at today's conference, and I hope you have a wonderful and productive conference. Thanks so much.